I wonder, sometimes when I begin my reviews with pre-production info, it goes on for way too long. It therefore can ruin the review, despite when the review itself is solid. Yeah, I don't care. I just know this is a somewhat decent metaphor for this movie. Slow burns in movies are loved or hated, and it's not hard to see why. It is what it sounds like. Either you have to wait a while from the slow pacing for something to happen for a fantastic moment it's been waiting for, or you just feel underwhelmed and feel like you're wasting your time. They're taking their time out to watch a movie. They want to not feel like they're wasting their time, which could go out to doing better things, like, watching a good movie. I say watch a good movie, but I did like this movie, but it's definitely going to be a love it or hate it for everyone. But my opinion of this movie definitely went higher after watching Disney Plus's version of Cheaper by the Dozen. So I look back and say, this is as funny as Blazing Saddles in comparison. The movie is kind of many things: a comedy, a drama, a thriller. The story is by Justin Lader, Andrew Kevin Walker, Jason Segel, and Charlie McDowell, with Lader and Walker writing the screenplay, Segel starring in the movie, and McDowell the director. Now, with all that said, what's the movie about? Starting off with no context, at a beautiful vacation home in the middle of nowhere, an unnamed character, played by Jason Segel, credited as Nobody, is enjoying himself there all by his lonesomeness. Eating oranges right off trees, being in showers, the high life, stealing money and almost getting away with it. But his afternoon is ruined by when the actual people who are actually staying at the vacation home at the last minute arrive. And for the sake of not confusing myself with this explanation, I'll refer to Jason Segel's character as Jason. Jason tries to get away, but gets spotted and holds them at gunpoint, trying to make sure he can get away without the husband, played by Jesse Plemons, credited as CEO, and his wife, played by Lily Collins, credited as wife, being able to tell on him. Yet when it seems like he is able to get away with it, Jason discovers an obstacle in the way he might not be able to avoid, so he can get away. Now he must try to make sure the CEO and his wife can be able to help him out, as the two of them are now stuck with this nobody who clearly doesn't know what he's doing, but will make sure he can get away with it, while slicking around at the vacation home where he becomes part of the couple's own melodrama. Yet soon all three might become part of a bigger problem. The story to me isn't bad. After a while, like I said, the movie is a slow burn. Like, it almost felt like this movie had just been a short film. Then the obstacle in the movie comes in, and at least it wasn't a simple obstacle the character could easily avoid. It was something that actually requires Jason to rethink his plan and have to try his hardest to pull it off. Make it a movie. I'll say this, for the story, I'll get more positively into it later, but for each character to not know their names is fine. Like, I know this trope, but for someone like Segel's character, who we're not supposed to know who he really is, that works. But for the famous CEO of a tech company, as that's what they refer to him many times in the movie, I feel like then I could know his name, or at least his wife, but the performances and personalities of all three do help out. I just couldn't help but think to myself, each character's names were the actor's own. Jason, Jesse, Lily, that sort of thing. So it might not have fully convinced me they were other people, since this is what I do associate each actor to look like. Despite being nameless, each character does have a personality that makes them interesting and feel unique in this type of story. Jason is clearly a character who would seem like a normal person on the street, yet has a role where he has the power over the two and doesn't know what he's doing. The CEO isn't necessarily a jerk. I'll say this as I get back into the story in a bit. But for the direction the story could go, he comes off as someone who clearly doesn't realize he's a jerk. And the wife, more on that later. I feel like the home invasion story might sound a bit familiar, but this movie has a very interesting take on the story itself, that being the tone. The movie has a weird sense of dry humor to it, like the couple's very nonchalant attitude to literally being held at gunpoint. At first I wasn't getting into the story, since at first he doesn't have a gun on him, he does later on, but he makes them think he has a gun, but very poorly. Like, we see his hand in his pocket, so it's that kind of situation, I guess, but he takes both hands out. It's obviously nothing, is in his pocket. That was sure this movie would win me over, but once he does get a gun, the movie does get started, since it's slightly humorous how each character reacts in this situation. And I'm not an expert on this, but I think it's somewhat ironic when the hostages are the ones who feel more in control than the person taking them hostage. I mean, not every joke works, but it's definitely more funny than not. But the slow burn did kind of get on my nerves, which compared to No Exit, every scene from what I remember helped move the story forwards. Here, Jason's character is forced to wait out for something to help him out, and we as an audience have to wait it out too. And if the jokes don't work for you, it's gonna feel boring. it's meant to come off funny, like hearing the couple argue about melodrama as the CEO tries to figure out what's Jason's motivation for all this, while the wife seems to be more happy around the person taking her hostage more than her husband. Like, there's a scene where they're just watching the Three Amigos, and Jason and the wife are enjoying it, while it's clear on the CEO's face he is impeccably annoyed. I thought the story might show an abusive relationship between the couple, but to me, it shows it's just an unhealthy relationship, since the CEO clearly isn't a good at reading people think he knows what to say when he clearly doesn't, and might piss more people off when he thinks he's helping them out, and it's really convincing he doesn't realize it. The movie takes a while with many scenes, and while I was slightly bored, the Wait did have a good joke by the end of it, and yes, I said not every joke works, but the characters and story did get to a point where I had to know how it ends, since I really didn't know where the story was going. The story does become incredibly serious after a certain scene, I won't spoil it, where it feels like a point of no return, and each character must figure out where to go from there after this choice happens. It really does a good job where since we do get a good idea, but not a great idea of knowing these characters, I feel like I know what they might do, but not for certain, and the way the movie ends was interesting, to say the least. Again, not spoiling it, I don't know if I say the ending 100% works. Like, I do think it does serve as how a movie could end, but does feel a bit sudden for this one character that kind of has built up to do so, what, he or she does, but it's kind of part of the mystery, and I like it. Yeah, I love the movie. Not really. Its problems are obvious, such as feeling sluggish a lot, humor is love or hate, and I wouldn't call it something I see myself rewatching, but I'm glad I did watch it, since it was well acted, humorous for me, unpredictable in some cases, and having my attention. I think this would have been more interesting as a play. Like, the story doesn't necessarily make me feel like anything that could work in the movie couldn't easily be rewritten for the stage, so I'm glad I watched this movie. It's nothing phenomenal, but it has way more personality or charisma than Rescued by Rudy, for example, yet isn't as fantastic as other movies I saw this year, since it is a solid film, yet nothing great, and, that's fine. It's a good movie, and sometimes that's all you can say, but I don't get to the point well, so, well, I know, that's just how my reviews work. I give Windfall a 7 out of 10.